The man who transformed old homes into national treasures is ready to reveal a startling fact. Fans have been keeping a careful eye on it for months, wondering if the person they have trusted for years is going to permanently go. As the rumors became more widespread, Kevin O'Connor remained mute. Finally, though, he is prepared to reveal the truth. And the story starts with an unexpected moment. There have been rumors about Kevin O'Connor's future on this old house for a while. The same question was posed everywhere he went. Was he going somewhere? Was the man who gave the program a sense of home leaving? Nobody was certain. Kevin never came forth with a definitive response. Rather, he began to move in ways that increased the amount of conversation. He started to appear in new locations. And people noticed. He was giving speeches in front of large crowds at important events, discussing how to develop leadership skills and the lessons that can be learned from ancient walls. And it wasn't merely for amusement. He received between $15,000 and $50,000 for each appearance in these speeches. With that type of money, he was well known outside of the TV. He was simultaneously exploring other areas of the building world. In order to give guidance on how to expand a business or repair a building, he attended conferences with contractors and CEOs. On much larger platforms, he was becoming a voice that people trusted. When everything was considered, it was evident that Kevin was entering a new phase. He was no longer merely the host. He was emerging as a leader, an authority, and perhaps even an industry hero. Change has always been a theme of the show itself. It transforms anything worn out and damaged into something brand new. Kevin stood in the midst of the transformation for 20 years. He contributed to making this ancient home modern and fit for the coming generation. He did more than simply keep it alive. He aided in its cross-platform expansion, reaching viewers on television, the internet, and construction sites worldwide. However, you must begin with the aspect of his life that most people are unaware of if you truly want to comprehend how he got here. The segment that started with a house that was constantly in need of repair. Kevin O'Connor was merely a youngster growing up in Maplewood, New Jersey, before cameras followed him everywhere. He came from a family that understood what it meant to start from scratch when he was born in 1968 or 1969. Their home was a constant work in progress, and his father worked as a civil engineer. Kevin and his brothers lugged planks and mixed cement as other children played catch. By primary school, he was able to read measure boards and plans on his own. Although it wasn't always enjoyable, it sowed a seed that would last a lifetime. Everything changed when I was 19. He began repeatedly blacking out when he was undergoing military training. Physicians found that he had a cardiac murmur. They were unable to guarantee that things wouldn't worsen. Stranger still, the medical records pertaining to his examinations and diagnosis vanished. Nobody was aware of their whereabouts. For years he was plagued by the loss of those records. He also required a new strategy because the military door was closing. He then went to school. He received his diploma from Newark's St. Benedict's Preparatory School in 1986. It was an environment that required diligence. He studied history at the College of the Holy Cross and graduated in 1990 thanks to that field. History taught him how to concisely explain concepts. Even though it didn't seem like the path to a construction show. He mastered the art of simplifying complex facts so that anyone could grasp them. He then went on to Boston University to obtain his MBA. He confidently entered the corporate sector after completing all of that education. He began by working in sports finance at Fleet Bank, where he assisted in financing stadiums. He later transferred to Bank of America. He quickly rose to the position of senior vice president, managing accounts valued at millions of dollars. He was earning six figures, moving up the social scale, and creating a life that most people would be envious of. On the exterior, it appeared flawless. On the inside, though, Kevin was still drawn to something that he couldn't ignore. In Beverly, Massachusetts, he and his spouse, Kathleen, purchased a Queen Anne Victorian home in 2003. It had a nice appearance. However, the issues began to mount as soon as they moved in. Every inch needed to be fixed. The bedrooms, bathrooms, and kitchen. Nothing was secure. The worst thing, though, was the wallpaper. It was like attempting to remove concrete from the walls because it had been painted and coated so many times. Even after hours of tearing and scraping, it hardly made a dent. They emailed the staff at this old house in a desperate attempt to get a tip that might help them save their sanity. Kevin was unaware that Ask This Old House, a new spin-off, was being planned by the producers. He couldn't have come at a better time. They took notice of the email, but he wasn't just lucky to end himself in front of the cameras. Nobody else has what Kevin did. A sincere approach to questioning that forced the specialist to divulge. He assumed it would be a cordial visit when the crew arrived at his Victorian home. He was unaware that it was a test. They asked him about the wallpaper issue that was driving him nuts while they were filming him at work. He kept asking questions even after the cameras stopped rolling. He followed Tom Silva around over lunch, bringing him suggestions and concerns. Before Tom had a chance to eat, Kevin asked another question. Everything was being watched by the producers. They could see that he was naturally intrigued. He was filled with the same awe that viewers experienced when they attempted to repair their own houses. Kevin thought he had the most amazing day ever when the filming was over. He begged to take a picture with the crew since he was so happy. He wanted a memento to commemorate the fact that he would likely never see them again. However, a call that would alter his life arrived just 3 weeks later. The phone rang when he was seated at his Bank of America office. He mistook it for a customer, but it was this old house's producers. They asked him whether he would want to host both the original series and the upcoming spin-off. It seemed unbelievable to Kevin. He believed it to be a practical joke. He wasn't certain this was true, even when he realized they were serious. In case everything went wrong, he told his bank supervisor that he may return in a year. However, the producers were well versed in their craft. They had already experienced 2 drastic and dissimilar host shifts. The show was made popular by its original host Bob Vila, although he also made bad decisions. When Bob Vila began in 1979, nobody believed that home remodeling could make for entertaining television. Millions of people saw this old house that he helped transform. However, Bob's salary remained modest even as the show expanded. He started out earning only $200 per episode. He was only earning $800 per episode even after 10 years. He made less money during his whole tenure than other contractors did in a single year. Bob's big endorsement contract with Rickel Home Centers caused a rift with Home Depot, the show's primary sponsor. He had to choose between the two, according to PBS. Bob decided on the cash. The producers didn't even inform him that he had been dismissed. A press release told his agency about it. Steve Thomas took over after Bob left. He stayed for 14 years and was different, quieter and more cautious. In 1998, he even took home an Emmy. However, he disappeared from the show in 2003. There was no elaborate send-off or farewell episode, just a brief statement expressing his desire to sail and ski. The fans were perplexed. Why he left was a mystery to everyone. Given all of that history, the producers realized that their next choice needed to be exceptional, someone who was trustworthy, new, and able to gain the respect of both the devoted audience and the veteran team. Kevin received the call for that reason. However, there wasn't a red carpet invite to join the show. He was met with a shovel by Richard Trethewey, the show's no-nonsense plumbing expert. After working in bank boardrooms for years, Kevin was now excavating ditches for sewer systems. No cameras were present to add a lovely touch. The actual work was this. It was the type that left your hands feeling raw. The fact that Kevin was the new host didn't bother Richard. He wanted to see if Kevin could cope with the grime, the perspiration, and the demands of the work. Each aching muscle served as a test. And Richard wasn't the only one who put him to the test. Kevin was immediately thrust into sawing and measuring by Tom Silva. Kevin wasn't asked to act for the camera. He forced him to complete the task in person. Tom said a host should be knowledgeable, and not just recite lines. Kevin quickly discovered that he had to earn his place if he wanted to fit in. After filming, he spent hours learning the proper usage of each tool. He repeatedly measured boards until he could do it instinctively. Because they watched him struggle, make mistakes and try again, they were rooting for him. It was just a year after he began that something unexpected occurred. In 2004, Kevin received an Emmy nomination for hosting the Outstanding Service Show. He was taken aback, so were the critics. Suddenly a man who had never worked in television was standing next to seasoned presenters. Steve Thomas and Bob Vila had spent years establishing their reputations. Kevin completed it in just one season. He struck a chord with his candor, curiosity, and readiness to be the student rather than the expert. He was just what the show needed, as evidenced by his Emmy nomination. However, Kevin was undergoing another change. He became aware that he enjoyed more than just discussing construction. He enjoyed doing it. He desired to feel the labor in his hands, lay the bricks and pick up the hammer. Because of that attitude, he became a true collaborator to the professionals, rather than just another TV celebrity. He stepped in rather than standing aside. Kevin reached for a wrench as Richard demonstrated how to run pipes. Kevin assisted in nailing the boards after Tom demonstrated how to frame a window. The show felt different as a result. Learning together was more important than merely imparting knowledge. He continued that strategy when he became the presenter of Ask This Old House. For him, though, that was insufficient. He became a member of This Old House magazine's editorial board and contributed to the development of the magazine's print stories. Additionally, he assisted in the launch of a third series, Inside This Old House, in the same year that he began hosting. This one featured behind-the-scenes glimpses into the most impressive projects the show has ever worked on. The absurd aspect was that he continued to work for Bank of America for a while. Until he was certain that this new career was stable, he did not completely leave his banking position. He exercised caution. He wasn't trying to get famous on TV. His goal was to create something enduring. However, Kevin's cautious approach did not imply that he was hesitant to express his opinions. He actually did something one day that nearly everyone was startled by. A reporter asked him about his thoughts on the influx of new do-it-yourself shows on cable channels during an interview. Kevin didn't mince words. He referred to majority of them as shit. He claimed that they were useless and that he couldn't be interested in them for even a moment. The word crap spread like wildfire. It resembled striking a match in a parched jungle. Other TV hosts were incensed, and fans were taken aback. Kevin didn't back down, instead he doubled down. Those shows were fake, he stated. They led people to believe that you could renovate a whole house on a very small expense in a single weekend. And those who attempted to replicate that at home were unsuccessful. It was because the shows were lying, not because people were stupid. He stated deceiving viewers was wrong. People began to realize that Kevin was more than just a host who read scripts at that point. He genuinely cared about the truth and assisting others in doing things correctly. He referred to his remarks as the beginning of a philosophical war. The fast-paced, ostentatious performances that prioritized entertaining above actual ability were on one side. Kevin felt that teaching, not simply entertaining, should be the primary goal of this old mansion on the opposite side. When HGTV stars retaliated, the altercation became louder. Kevin refused to change, despite their claims that he didn't understand their audience and that they like witnessing fast makeovers. If something seems too simple, it's probably not real, he remarked. Kevin never mentioned one thing, even when everyone was fighting. Vila Bob. This Old House's inaugural host, Bob, departed in 1989, following a heated argument over endorsements. PBS advised him to choose a side after he inked $500,000 contracts with other businesses. The outcome resulted from his decision to take the money. Kevin, however, never mentioned it. He never spoke of Bob Vila in public for more than 20 years. No kudos, no guilt. Some said that was wise because discussing it would only resurrect old issues. Kevin was always careful who he fought. But Kevin never held back when it came to honoring older builders. When people made fun of the way houses were constructed a century ago, he detested it. Those builders were smart, he remarked. With what they had, they made do. In the absence of fiberglass insulation, they used plaster and coal as best they could. Additionally, Kevin disagreed with those who said that large homes were invariably harmful. He maintained that waste was not a function of magnitude. A large, well-constructed home may consume less energy than a small, poorly constructed one. That caused him to argue, but he didn't give a damn. Judging without understanding is just lazy, he remarked. Each of these strong beliefs served a purpose. Kevin wanted this historic home to remain unique. He desired for it to seem genuine. He also didn't want it to become just another quick flip program, which is why he didn't bring up Bob Vob. He had no intention of bringing the show's history into the present. Rather, he concentrated on going forward. When Norm Abram retired in 2022, that focus was put to the test once more. Ever since the first episode, Norm had been there. He was the reliable, steady carpenter that everyone trusted for 43 years. It was like losing a piece of the show's heart when Norm left. Kevin, however, remained calm. He meticulously prepared the changeover. He maintained Norm's spirit while bringing in new specialists. When Roger Cook had to take a back seat due to his health, he followed suit. Roger got almost as much time on the show as Norm. To avoid giving followers the impression that everything was changing all at once, Kevin introduced Jen Natata gradually. Kevin was also aware of the rapid changes in TV viewing habits. Long scenes that lasted 10 or even 12 minutes without a cut were filmed when Bob Vila was hosting, but audiences of today preferred faster editing. Kevin adjusted. He never made the segments shallow, instead he made them tighter and shorter. Even if the scenes moved more quickly, the lessons were still evident, because he continued to pose insightful queries. He also assisted in the show's expansion. He launched Clear Story, a podcast on household operations, in 2019. The program was a huge success, and was among the top 1% of podcasts. He assisted this former house partner with Roku in 2021, so that everyone may watch all of the episodes for free. All 1,500 episodes were made available online, along with a channel that continuously streamed them. And in order to assist viewers in completing the projects they learned about, he co-founded This Old Toolbox, a tool rental service. When other shows went away, Kevin's approach to managing all these changes, maintaining the original spirit while embracing new ideas, helped the show endure. It also assisted him in creating a solid financial future. People wanted to know Kevin's real income. In the beginning, Kevin was making roughly $10,000 every episode, whereas Bob Vila was making only $200. He had hosted more than $380 programs, which amounted to millions of dollars. He didn't stop there either. He received up to $50,000 apiece for his speaking engagements. He motivated hundreds of people, gave speeches at large trade events, and instructed businesses on the future of construction. He invested using his previous banking expertise as well. He made over $1.5 million annually from his stocks, which were valued over $5 million. He continued to reside in the same Queen Anne Victorian home that made him famous on television. It was not a trophy house. It demonstrated his continued faith in historic homes, meticulous labor, and doing things well. And now fans continued to ask the same question after all these years. Is Kevin O'Connor going to leave this house? This is the solution. Kevin had no intention of leaving the concert because he was bored or exhausted. His increased speaking engagements, podcast debut, and investing activity sparked the rumors. Some thought he was preparing to leave. Although he is eager to expand his impact and explore other things, Kevin has stated that he does not regard those endeavors as a replacement for the show. They are extensions. He clarified that his heart is still in this ancient house. He still enjoys wondering why the joists were installed in a particular way, while he stands in ancient kitchens. Every episode still teaches him something new. He still thinks there are more stories to be told in the show. He didn't start taking on more projects in order to escape hosting. The goal was to raise awareness of the need of quality construction. Therefore, even though Kevin is busier than ever, he isn't giving up. He is simply expanding his methods of instruction and motivation. He doesn't have to pick between TV and his other endeavors, because he has created something so solid. And for that reason, Kevin O'Connor isn't leaving after 20 years.
He remains standing in the sawdust, prepared to pose the following query. You don't have to choose fame above the truth, as Kevin O'Connor has demonstrated. You may create a life you love while upholding your morals and teaching others what is important. One project at a time, his story is expanding rather than coming to a close.